Hi, I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married.
With children.
We're going on 2 years of marriage.
But we've been together for 10.
He brought 2.
She brought 2.
Together, that's 4 kids.
That's way too many kids.
And we want to share what works for us.
And what doesn't.
For step-parents, co-parents, marriage, being your best self, managing work, family, friends, health. We're going to talk about...
everything.
You ready, babe?
Always.
Well, hello, Everything Always family. Welcome to another episode of the Everything Always show. It is just me again, and I'm sure that bums you out because I know you love to hear the big Dutch man's voice, but it is just me today, and I'm having girlfriend talk with Heather Stewart. She's also known as the wicked stepmom, but she's anything but evil wicked. She's everything wicked awesome and wicked cool. And you're going to hear that. I'm so stoked to be talking to her because I've sought her out early on. I've been following her on social media. I think she's so rad. I love the stories that she shares. And I really wanted to talk to her because there's a lot of women that write in that are childless stepmoms. They're an insta-mom. They just kind of meet somebody, fall in love, and the next thing you know, they're a mom, even though they don't have biological children of their own. And it's always such a crazy dynamic, all good things, challenging things. And a lot of women write in, about their struggles with relationship with the bio mom, figuring out how to be a mom all of a sudden with young kids or even older kids. And there's just a lot that goes into it, and it's stressful, but it's also super rewarding. There's goof ups that we have, and we're talking about all of that in today's interview. And what I'm super impressed with is Heather and how she handles situations if emotions do arise or if things do feel frustrating, and at the same time, how she learned to get there. So it's awesome stuff. I'm so excited for you to listen and enjoy the interview. Heather, I'm so excited that you are talking to me today about being a stepmom, blended family, all the good stuff.
Thanks for having me. This is so exciting. I've actually listened to yourself and Mike a lot, and you guys offer a lot of advice, and even some of your interviews have been quite insightful. So it's exciting to be a part of your show.
Thank you. Well, that makes me excited, especially, let's talk about first who you are. Sure. So you are a stepmom, and you blog a lot about what it was like becoming an instant mom, because you were not a parent yourself until you met your husband, correct?
That is correct. Yes. So I lived if you could picture the ultimate party girl, loving life, doing all the adventures, awesome. Making all the mistakes. I did them all. And, I was really career driven. I was focused on me. And honestly, in some aspects, I guess I was living a selfish life. Not that that was necessarily a bad thing. It was just me that I had to worry about. And then I came into this role and woke up and I'm like, okay, this is a completely different lifestyle. And it definitely wasn't selfish. It was completely the opposite. So yeah, I was in no way, shape or form thinking about children or a life with a full family already made.
And how old were they when you first met?
So the first meeting was preliminary, but they were 2 and 4. And then our relationship started to build as they were 3 and 5. So I guess they know of 3 and 5.
Kids at that age can be a handful. So if you're not used to parenting that, and then you're just kind of thrown into it, that's a lot to deal with.
It was. And I look at it, I look back at the time where I actually was joking with my husband this week, and I was like, remember that first time when the boys came around the corner of our apartment? I was like, oh shit, he's really little. They're just babies. I'm like, I gotta go. We're gonna go. Where's the escape road? They were babies, and I had talked on FaceTime and seen before, but I never really, maybe I didn't put it into perspective. Maybe there was some part of me that was a bit naive, but as it progressed, it became a little more manageable, but yeah, they were challenging. They were little.
What were some of those, being this woman that's coming into their lives? What are the challenges you faced right at the beginning?
So I had always been around kids, and I almost hate saying that because everyone's like, well, you can't be around kids enough until you become a mom. And then it's a whole ball game, really. To be honest, I came into a situation where my husband really needed a lot of help in the sense that he was working a full-time job. He had his own place. And so when he was actually having the children a lot, and I just came in helping him. So a lot of people are like, did you discipline right away? How did you navigate in that way? Like, did they resist you? And with me, I came in helping my husband. So when you have a 3-year-old who's not sitting his bum in the chair, you're like, okay, you need to sit still. It's supper time. You know, you need to go brush your teeth. Did you potty before you went to bed? Okay, let's put your pull-up on. Like all of that, I just was helping him. And I kind of just moved into that direction of a parent naturally. I can't say that there was like, it was really hard because they saw me as someone helping their dad, and it was so natural, and they like loved on me. And like, cliche enough, I always say, I was like, it's kind of a miracle of how it happened, because they curled up with me and cuddled with me immediately. Like that was just the relationship we had. It wasn't pride or tried or awkward.
You know, and I think there's that advantage too when they're so young. I've noticed that. And I think we had that as well in our family, but I've seen people when the kids are older, it's more difficult. They're a little bit apprehensive, not a little bit, a lot, you know, because they've been used to this other life for so long. Whereas when they're little, it's kind of like things are changing all the time for them.
I think you're right. I think some people say, oh, it's great because they were little. And I think there's some positives when your kids are older because they're able to process it differently as well. But I do think for our situation in particular, it was great that they were so little, because it was just accepting as though I was like, I don't know, it could have been like a caretaker or a nanny in their life. Like they really accepted me as, and I think, I don't know, kids are so intuitive. Like we don't give them enough credit. I mean, these little boys saw their dad and now just as himself. They actually had 3 months away from their dad while he was across the country, just, you know, looking for a job and reestablishing himself. So it was like, you know, 3 or 4 months after, and it came in, and I was a part of that new life, and I was loving on him. And I think that's all that mattered to them. And so they're like, oh, my dad loves her. She loves him. Okay, cool. This person's awesome. They actually called me Miss Hetty at the beginning of it all. And it was so formal. So formal. Yeah. And like, we have videos of like my youngest being like, look, Dad, look, it's Miss Hetty on a picture. It's Miss Hetty. And he would kiss me goodnight. And I'm like, I don't know. Like it's pretty crazy to me when I think about, you know, the beginning days.
And how often do you guys have them?
So we do have 50-50. The beginning of our relationship, I actually did long distance for 9 months. So I think that helped me establish a relationship with the children, because we actually built a relationship via FaceTime. So I would have movie nights with them while on the computer, or, you know, we'd have like, I'd send gifts to them and, you know, with some kind of scavenger hunt or some kind of game associated. And so when I did visit, it wasn't that they were with us full time, it was split. And I remember my first time, like being Dad's girlfriend, I had been in their lives via FaceTime, I guess, for almost 6 months. Yeah. And we went camping. And so camping didn't also feel like we were at home in their space. And we just had an adventure together, which was a whole other can of worms. Because, man, camping with a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, like I had no idea.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That is a lot.
There is. There's a lot of there's a lot of pictures of me drinking beer. Like I was just
totally needed.
So with that, and Chris had them 50-50 as well then. So Chris is my husband. And then when I moved across the country and kind of left my career and everything, it still went 50-50 the whole time. So our schedule is a 2-2-5-5 because the boys were so little, and it works for us, and then we'll continue until it doesn't. Kind of.
That's what we did for a long time when all of our kids were younger, when we shifted to 50-50. Yeah. And we had different there was a time where my husband had his kids less percentage, then it moved to 50-50, and I had my kids more, and my ex-husband had them less, and then it shifted to 50-50. So, that was such a great, especially when they're younger, because, you know, it's hard for them to be away from either parent for so long. But then, you know, you just kind of feel out when it's right. And they kind of start to ask, like, our kids were kind of like, you know, it would be easier if I didn't have to move all of this stuff. But when we presented it to them earlier on, like, what do you think about a week on or a week off? It was like, not ready yet, you know? So you just, you feel that out. This is like one of the biggest things that I hear, especially from women in a similar situation to you that are just dating somebody with kids and don't have kids themselves. They have challenges and struggles with the relationship between their husband and the bio mom. or sometimes it's a relationship between the two women. And so I'm curious, and obviously only share what you want to and feel comfortable sharing, but I'm always curious about that. And I want to address it because I cannot even tell you how many women will write in about this, about challenges that they're having. So I'm like, gosh, it's almost like I can't talk about it enough.
Yeah, I do think every situation is different. I tread lightly, and I only tread lightly with this area because I think I try to emphasize a lot on the positive and how stepmoms are parents too. And I'm probably navigating a little differently, to be honest, because Summer, you're a mom in the position too. And I think if I'm talking to moms who are in the role as a stepmom as well or not, I actually probably talk differently than I do if it's just another stepmom and they're not a mom as well. I think everyone has different emotions in it. And I think that you bring to the table in your situation, like a whole different insight because you're a mom prior to becoming the stepmom. And whether there's a stepmom on the other side or how that feels or how that even happened, there's so many different elements. So I tread lightly, but in our regard, I call it pretend amicable. We are pretend amicable in front of the children, but we are not friendly. It's friendly if it's needing something. There's still, I think, a lot of hurt and emotions with regards to the relationship and what happened there prior to me. I come in with a really full personality and I'm like, okay, well, it's our home. I'm going to do what I have to do to, navigate through it. And no one's going to really tell me how to do that. And I'm pretty sure, bio mom has that same personality traits. Yeah. And so sometimes that clashes, and not necessarily that we even communicate a lot. I actually allow my husband to do the communicating. I think even though I might be doing all of the appointments, it's just going to come across a lot easier to be received, I think, from him, and say, hey, this is what the doctor said, this is what the dentist said, and this is what we got haircuts and this. Instead of me being like, hey, this is what this is. It's almost like, oh, you did all that with my kids? Like, why didn't I do it? Even though it was all put on our plate, it's just that I happen to be the one in this household that could take care of it. And so, we navigate in that way. There are things, we have a group text that we communicate things with, school papers or invitations, and those little logistical things I will communicate back and forth with, because it's usually me who's making sure that snow pants were in the backpacks or making sure that, their papers were signed and all of that. So I'll communicate those types of things with her. I don't get into feeling matches. When we're talking about feelings or how we should proceed as a family or as a whole or not, I don't get involved. I try to stay out of that. My husband probably hears a much more earful on that end. And we're very aligned in that way. And often before those conversations happen, we kind of know where our boundaries are, what we're, how we feel, where we're going, like that kind of thing. So what he's actually communicating is usually what we kind of come to together on. In public, we don't have the same friends. We're not having wine together. And I know that there's lots of people that do. We've never really sat down and had a chat. We've never communicated really about the children, and what they're going to be even involved in. It's just, I stay out of that part of it. Because I think actually, and maybe this is stereotypical and a lot of women will be like, oh, that's not me. But I think we're very emotional and we're very emotionally driven. And sometimes I might respond in a way because not even that thinking about the kids, but just how I might feel, or that it might be about something about snow pants. And I'm like, so by her saying that I forgot the snow pants, does that mean I'm not as good of a parent? But it had nothing to do about that. We're just talking about friggin' snow pants. Yes. So I think sometimes it's just easier. And I always say, my husband knows her better than I do. Yeah. And he knows the bad and the good. So why am I telling him how to communicate with her or how we should be communicating with her when he's the one who spent, X number of years dealing with it?
You're extremely mature, and I have to know Was it always this way for you? Because, for a lot of people who finally reach that point where they go, okay, I'm not going to get emotionally involved, or I'm not going to try to, I don't know if you heard one of our episodes with Ashley, and she was like, I used to be like, I'm going to send the text message for you, or I'm going to communicate all of that. And instead, she said, hey, he can handle these things. And like you said, you come to an agreement together. And that's what my husband and I do, we'll talk about things and go, okay, what's the ideal outcome and how do we need to respond to this? And I think that's so healthy and good because, that means you're also putting your relationship as a priority. But it took us some learning. We had to go through a learning curve to realize, maybe this is a more mature way of doing X, Y, or Z, or maybe, think about the kids or whatever it is at hand. When you really look at the ultimate result that you want to have, and if you're not getting it, obviously you have to do something different. And so we've learned a lot of different things that we need to do. And then there's some things where we're like, gosh, I know such and such family has so much drama with communication or this or whatever it is that's happening. And I think we've done really well. We always tackled it this way. So yeah, I just want to know, did you always know that, especially coming in as an instant mom, basically?
Right. So honestly, if I'm going to be completely transparent, hard no. I am still dramatic on the other end. It's just, I'm not going to show her that side of me. I'm going to hold my shit together and I'm going to act as so composed. But like, I'm the one being childish over on the end and being like flipping her the bird as I'm driving away. She can't see. Like, that's totally that.
Yeah.
That's just me being totally real in the senses that it is so.
I mean, if you have not had those moments in your life, then stop listening now because you're being fake. You're just not being real.
Yeah.
Who is born that mature ever?
Exactly. I'm seeing my front and how we've now learned what we need to do. It's been a learning curve for sure. But I also know that there are times when like we'll get texts about something and I just want to like rhyme off. So I actually put it in a separate text to my husband and I'm like, this is what I really want to say. And he'll do the same. And sometimes it's just about, and I've heard other people say like, you know what? I put it in a draft, like just put it in a draft, never send that or sit on it for 24 hours because sometimes I just have a lot that I want to say. I do have an opinion. And I think as a stepmom on the other side, there's no other stepdad involved. And I think it's really hard to feel like you're without a voice in this role. Sometimes you feel like it doesn't matter, and not that your husband or your partner doesn't make you feel like that. They can validate that and hear you all you want. But sometimes you just want to be like, no, that doesn't make sense. Why am I coming, in twice this weekend for this and this when you're going to be out here? Like, no, like sometimes you just want to have a voice. And so I think doing that and just putting that draft or putting my true feelings, in a text message to my husband that he can be like, okay, you're being emotional in this. It just makes me feel like I have a voice, even though we don't often tap into that voice because it's not appropriate. So no, I'm not always mature. It's not always perfect. And you know what? We've done things. And someone asked me recently, they're like, so how do you communicate? And I'm like, well, this texting thing this group texting, this has only been happening for probably the last 9 months. Prior to that, it was like phone calls, and it got so much for my husband that he was just like, you know what, let's set a time once a week. And we did a phone call. Then those phone calls end up being like, 2.5 hour conversations on a Tuesday night. And we're like exhausted. And we're like, why are we doing this for 2.5 hours? Like we're just basically bickering back and forth or feelings, or there's a reason why the people are split too, that things aren't always going to be perfect. It's never going to be agreeing. And you can say, oh, you have to put the kids ahead of everything else. That's true. But I'm telling you, with adults involved who are complicating everything, it's really hard sometimes to just see the child in it and everyone see the children in it at the same time.
Right.
So I think, we've learned through what has worked for us, what doesn't work for us. And you know what? This little texting system works for like mundane things. And then the bigger thing is going an email. And that might not work for someone else's situation, but we've learned that does for ours. So
right.
It hasn't been always mature. It hasn't always been seamless. There are times where I've probably said something like, well, listen, I get a voice in this too, but again, and then I'm like, oh my God, why did I say that? Like, that was so childish of me. Like, this is so much bigger, but I've navigated. I mean, I'm also almost 5 years into this, and just like as a parent, when you have that newborn and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. You navigate through it and you learn how to deal with the emotions and the tantrums and all that. It just is. And I think that's kind of how this is. You're learning how to work with all the emotions, the tantrums, and
It totally is. And it's just, I mean, that's how everything in life is, right? Whether it's blended family, being a parent, being a step parent, it's constantly a learning lesson.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for taking a chance on us and listening to our podcast. Our goal is for you to not only learn from us, but to learn with us. We've taken a leap on being pretty open about our blended family and how we do life and everything. We want to make sure we bring you all the things you want to hear, always. So please, if you have specific questions like, how do I get along with my ex? Or how do I get along with his ex? Or how do I set some boundaries in place? Or why doesn't my stepson like me? Please email us with your questions. Email them to info@summerfelix.com because we want to answer those questions and we aim to bring you the best guests and conversations to address your most burning issues about everything, always.
I have to say, I love, like you said, sending the text message to him or just having a draft. I remember doing that even back when I was going through divorce. There were things I was so angry about and I'm like, I can't actually send this to my husband who I'm going through a divorce with, but I was, I had all the bad feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was like, it'll just start a war or it'll start an argument. And I used to draft, and I think I had a therapist that told me this, just write out the email, say all the nasty things, whatever you need to say, just say it. It's for you emotionally. And I thought, well, what is that going to help? But it does. There's something about the energy and it just feels like, it's kind of like if you're journaling or you're trying to like
Absolutely.
Think about your future or have a vision, you kind of just get into that feeling of, oh my gosh. And what happens is once you do that and then you just let it sit for a day or even sometimes just an hour, you're kind of like, I don't even need to send it. I feel so much better. But so many people do in that moment, like, I'm just going to send it because I need to transfer my negative energy to you. And I'm just going to spiral. And it's like, and then what does that do? I mean, nothing, that reaction, I mean,
is never what we needed.
No, and whatever ends up coming out from it, you're like, take it back.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But so funny, but that is so mature. I mean, that's the thing is that we do have these feelings. It's more about what are you going to do with them in that moment? Are you just going to drop the bomb on somebody or are you going to kind of go, okay, this is how I have to deal with it, get some tools and then respond.
Absolutely. You know what? You're dealing with, 3 or 4 adults in this situation. And I think at the end of the day, everyone has different values, different beliefs, different things that they're interested in. And it changes based on seasons often. So you can't expect it to be always the same. It's never going to always be the same.
It's so true when you say there's different seasons because you don't know like your situation. And I think we have that going on with our dynamic too. We're not on a very personal level with our ex-spouses. We just co-parent with them. Mm-hmm. There's not drinking wine together. There's not, all of that. It's basically, it's business. It's handling business. And we've found that is the absolute best for all of us. And kudos again, I say that often, kudos to the people that can do that. Have the wine, have the coffee, go have double dates together. That's great.
Right.
Really awesome.
It's not me. It's not me.
And it's not terribly common. So, you're dealing with already the emotions of the past, the hurt or whatever, and everybody heals and gets through that and moves on at different rates. Then on top of that, you also don't know what's going on in those lives. You don't know what's going on with your husband's ex and maybe he's going through a hard season. Maybe it's a great one and you're going through a hard season. There's different things that are always happening. And so more than ever, to be able to control your emotions, like still feel them, but to control the actions that you're going to take is like critical for everyone involved and especially the kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
I saw this post of yours on Instagram and it was you cuddling up with one of the boys because he was sick.
Yeah.
And it was so it just warmed my heart and was so, so sweet. And I wanted to talk about that just because I think that's kind of a moment it's a challenging moment. It's also probably one of the, like, such a rewarding moment. And I just wanted to, like, talk about your feelings in a moment like that. And then of course, share any other moments like that you have.
Yeah, I think it's, again, I go back to that cliche of, like, it's some kind of a crazy miracle and how seamless it's been for how I feel towards the children and how they feel towards me. And I know this isn't always received the best, but the boys do call me mom. Yeah. And I am their mom in this house. And that doesn't mean that they don't love their mom. Man, they love their mom hard. Like, like, she is their mom and they know that she's their real mom, but man, they love me hard. And in those moments, mom's not here and I am their mom. And I mean, especially my littlest who's like, he doesn't even know that there was a life before me. He crawls up to me and wants me to rub his back when he's sick. I'm who he wants. Yeah. And of course, if it's on his mom's time, she's who he wants. And so I don't minimize that there's two of us just loving so hard on these kids. And I think it's probably, and I would admit, I don't know this, it's hard for a mom to feel that and know that. I think there's some bio parents that can step aside and be like, wow, I'm so glad at least they have that when I'm not there. Yeah. But I do think that takes time and growth to be able to separate that, to realize that you can't be there all the time when you want to. And, there's moments like that where he was so sick that night and I just didn't know what to do. And I curled in the bed with him and my husband took the photo and I actually didn't even know because I was like half asleep. And I have these like little first moments, and I had first moments when they were sick before, but now that he's even getting older and he's 7 years old and he still just wants me. And there's things that he just wants his dad for. Like, he's never going to come to me and ask him, to help fix his toy box. Like, he needs his dad in those moments. And and it is a really raw, real moment. It's not a posed moment. He's asleep and sick. And there are nights where I remember living in like a 2-bedroom condo and like spending my night up changing sheets and scrubbing floors because they were so little that they couldn't run to the bathroom quick in time. And we didn't know that they were sick and they were like vomiting on the floor. And I'm like, what the fuck did I sign up for?
Oh yeah.
But then there's these moments where they're a little bit older so they can actually get to the bathroom. So that's kind of nice.
Yes.
But yeah, it's raw and it's real. And again, going back, they came to the conclusion of calling me mom on their own. And, and it was, we actually in our home were like, let's come up with something different, like, maybe in a different language or, and like we would go through different styles of mom. So it didn't get confusing for them. And I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. Like, that's not what I was here to do. Like, I wasn't here to make it harder. It was already hard enough. And they just kept, like, especially my oldest, the youngest one was kind of just followed suit and he just kept pressing through, but I don't get it. You are my mom. He's actually said it the first time on Christmas Day. And he's like, but I think I want to call you mom. You're like a mom. You smell like a mom. You talk like a mom. You do the cooking like the mom. And so, yeah, I just want to call you mom. And so it was pushed again back like on the other end, and it went for some time, and they're like, we're not allowed to call you mom. And, and I was like, whatever you want to call me, whatever you feel comfortable calling me, I don't care. And it was kind of unnatural for me, to be honest, because I think, okay, so you had your children and you had them in your belly and you're like coming to the conclusion, and people would refer to you like, oh, mommy's going to be so excited to meet you, or, oh, mommy bought you a new dress. And even, as you're like amping up in those years, or in those months, sorry. And then you have the early years where they're not calling you mom yet, and you're referring to yourself, or other people are referring to yourself as mom. But I never had that. I just started having a 5-year-old being like, mom, mommy. And then it's like 6 times and they're like, Hetty. I was like, yeah, what's up? I was like, I would forget. I didn't know that they were calling it. It was so unnatural.
Right.
And so when we got married, we were officially married, and my oldest stepmom said, no one can tell me not to call you mom now. You really are my mom. And he just does it like full, intentional, wholeheartedly. You're my mom. Yeah. And so those moments, going back to that, those moments of that picture, I am. And I think that's hard for me to say to someone like you who's a mom. It's hard to say to my circles of just mom friends or not even in a blended family situation, because I think ultimately everyone's like, I can't imagine. It would kill me. It would kill me. And I bet it would kill me. I'm not even minimizing how hard it must be. How do you continue to squash a child when they're so adamant and they're for 2 years consistently of wanting to call me Bob?
I absolutely agree. It's so interesting because yes, I'm a mother, but I'm also a stepmom. And so I do sometimes wonder, I think I remember early on first being divorced, when there were, maybe some other women in the kid's life. And it was like,
yeah,
who is this? And what's happening? And you're so fragile. And it's different being a stepmom. I definitely have a different vision, but even besides that, there's just something about if your kids are happy, if they're so stoked, that's such an awesome feeling to know, because I think it's a worse feeling. I've had friends who have gone through divorce and they're like, I've got to send my child, to this other parent, and they don't want to go.
And it's not positive, right?
And they're so upset. And that is like heart-wrenching as a parent to do that. Because you're like, I want you to feel happy and excited and loved and all of these things. And if they're not feeling that, it's awful. And I've always felt like it was so wonderful knowing that kids are in a place where it's like all of them they miss both parents. When I'm not with you, I miss you, but I'm so excited to go see this parent. Or I'm excited to come back to you. And for my children, in their case, they have a stepmom and their dad, and then they've got siblings, little siblings that they're so excited about. And I'm like, that's so, it's such a great feeling knowing if they're sick, they're being taken care of. And there's that female energy, that masculine energy. There's all of that they need there. And they've got that here. And it's a great feeling to know that. And I think we had Naja Hall.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard that. Yes.
I did listen to that one. Yes.
And I just loved, and it's so true when she's speaking out to mothers, it's like, you've got this woman who's loving on your children, and taking care of them. What a wonderful thing. Focus on that instead of you forgot to pack underwear or you forgot to fill their water bottle, their favorite water bottle for soccer, whatever it is, there's all these things you can get so nitpicky about that in the big picture is so not worth it. So not worth it.
It's funny you say that because I think those nitpicking things are so much more draining. And I think we can all get sucked into a season or a cycle of it, especially when at the beginning of like first navigating, being like, and it's almost like you're trying to, I think in a step parent, you're almost trying to validate, I did it all. I got it all done. I checked all the boxes. I figured it all out. Yeah. So the nitpicking is almost like to prove your worth, to prove your value, but it actually only becomes more detrimental and like exhausting.
Yes.
Than just being. I'm just human. Like, exactly. And sometimes I might forget shit and sometimes she might. Like, that doesn't make you a bad mom. Like,
no, and every mom does that. That's the thing. If you didn't have anybody else involved and you were doing it yourself, you would mess up and you would laugh about yourself and you would joke about it with your friends and go, oh my gosh, my kid didn't brush their teeth this morning because we were running late, or I totally didn't have time to give my kid breakfast. And so they had a Pop-Tart in the car on the way there or a bag of chips. I've heard these are all these like, you're laughing about yourself. Hey, sister, I get you. I've been there. Yeah. But if it were somebody else doing that, then it's so easy for that. I would never send my child to school with just a bag of chips for breakfast. What are you talking about? And I can't believe she did that.
She did that. Yes.
So it's like, come on.
I think that's exactly it though. And that's probably why I even started this whole journey, is that I wanted to normalize it, because as stepmoms, and maybe more childless stepmoms, or I don't know what childless stepdads are like, but you're constantly, even in your circle of friends who have kids, you almost put on this, like, everything is perfect. Yes. Everything is normal. Everything is fine. But in the meantime, I'm like, dying, trying to figure out, making sure that I get the favorite bottle, the favorite blankie, the stuffy, and the non-itchy underwear on them, exactly. But we have those same first and those same struggles. It's just our kids aren't toddlers as we're navigating through these things that we figure, don't care about the favorite bottle anymore. I'm going to, whatever, they're going to drink pop today, something silly. Right. I had a 4 and a 7-year-old looking up at me being like, you have no idea, lady, what to do right now, do you? Like, and that's what I just wanted to normalize it in the fact that, like, hey, I'm just like you. I too, on that drop off, wore my dress inside out and was like, didn't realize till I got back in the car after drop off, because I was so frazzled in the morning. You know what I mean? I too had like my kids eat a granola bar off the ground as we were walking into their first dentist appointment. And we're so normal, like every other parent, of being like, yeah, but I can't come across and try to be someone that it's actually non-existent.
Right.
They're kids and they're unpredictable. So therefore, sometimes the situations that we're in are unpredictable as well. Like it's so normal across the board. And I think society doesn't necessarily maybe see that. And maybe it's because they do this separate, like, well, you don't have all the responsibility on you, or you don't have to do this thing. And maybe that's so, and I think some people do separate things like, oh, well, the stepmom doesn't have to do that. And that's fine, but you still support your husband or your spouse, your partner in any way. So you're still, it's on the forefront that you're being seen, that you're dropping the ball in some things because it's just a hectic, crazy morning, or that it's between your own household. Like it still happens.
It still happens no matter what, whether you're only seeing them one day in a month. You know what I mean? Stuff just happens. You could be babysitting for your nephew and stuff's going to go on. It's just the way life is. And if we can focus more, plus I always say this, think of what you're doing and how you're modeling, your behavior as a model to your children. And if they're saying that you're constantly picking out the negative things and hearing that, then they're going to start doing the same thing. Instead, just be like, oh, I had a little mess up. It's fine. Just look at the positive things. At least it wasn't worse, Yeah. It's just really a mindset of being more positive and think about the good things. But yeah, the nitpicking stuff I see a lot of, and I just think what a waste of energy to think of all that. And it's almost like you're searching for it, You were talking about, creating your blog and all of that. I want our listeners to be able to find you and follow you and connect with your stories, because I think that you obviously can speak to so many different women in your situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a blog. It's wickedstepmom.com, all one word. And I chose Wicked Summer because no, I'm not evil Wicked. And I actually saw that you used Wicked in your about.
Yes.
And I was like, so you get it. I'm from Mall area in like the most eastern point of Canada. And I mean, I don't live there now, but Wicked means like, you're wicked awesome, wicked cool, like it's wicked good. So it was kind of a play on words, just like the blog Scary Mommy, I was like, I'm a wicked awesome, cool stepmom, but what does society really see me as? And you know what? That might change with the kids as they get older. But today I know that they think I'm wicked awesome. And then otherwise just follow me on Instagram, because that's kind of where the funny shit happens. Sorry, am I allowed to swear? Awesome. I've been swearing. it's me and just being real and raw. Like some days they don't have socks on and I'm like, well, yeah, that's cool. Or we're going out and I'm like, where's your jacket today? We're at the school, It's just real life. And I think it's important for people to see that we're just real humans too. Whatever.
What's awesome is that you're providing, you have this voice for other women that are, childless stepmoms. And it's a huge thing. And I think there's a lot of non-acknowledgement that happens, and sometimes the best thing that you do get is from other people seeing what you're going through, but really it's from your husband and then those moments with the kids. But other than that, I mean, it's not like you're getting kudos from other people. Sometimes you feel like, oh, there's judgment happening. So it's just, you just offer a really great voice for those women. And even even though I am a mother and I have my two biological children, I so relate to stepmoms in these situations. There's still so many things that I just get and have happened. And I'm just like, yes. And I am a mother, so right. I just connect with it and I love it. And I just love that you're so real and honest, and just thank you so much.
It's been a fun journey so far. I honestly can't believe, and I'm sure you feel the same way, the community of like women that they're so supportive, and
I know
it's been really cool to just like communicate with people. And my husband will sometimes say, he's like, are you talking to your internet friends again? And I'm like, yes, they're awesome. Like they're asking me for how to navigate through this and, you know, how to get through this, or like just genuinely asking me like, how are you today? Like you seem like you were struggling yesterday. And I was like, that's so cool. That's so cool.
No, it's so cool. I love it. And I love that people are talking about these things, because I feel like it's only been recent that, you know, and blended families and step parenting, I mean, this has happened for so long, but I feel like with social media, people are finally starting to talk about it more without having this, you know, shame or guilt for sharing their hard stories, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. For so long, everyone kind of hid, or they couldn't talk about it. And now the stigma is kind of like changing. And I think and maybe it's because it's becoming more normal for blended families and all of that. And I'm, you know, I just want to navigate with other women who are like-minded, who had funny episodes as, you know, first-time mom or instant moms, or, you know, the struggles that come with, you know, being in a blended family and a part of it. And sometimes it feels like you want to pack your bags and run, and then you're like, right, but I love these humans, and there's a reason why. And I'm in this role because at the end of the day, I'm strong enough. I wouldn't be put in this position if I wasn't capable and I wasn't strong enough. And I think that's the end of it for all women out there into this, is that if you love that partner that much that you're even considering this, you are strong enough for it.
Yeah. I love that. And what a perfect way to close this. I love that.
Cool.
We're gonna have links to everything, Heather, in our show notes and on the blog. I'm so thrilled. I feel like I chased you down for a little bit to get you on the show, and I'm just so excited. And I remember when you were coming on, I told Mike, I was like, yes, Heather's going to be on the podcast. She said yes. So
anytime.
I'm just stoked.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
It was fun. Thanks so much, Summer.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to our podcast. You know what they say, if you can't find what you're looking for, then you need to create it. So that's what we did.
Yep, I scoured the internet and looked for the tribe that spoke to me, and I just couldn't find the community that was raw, vulnerable, and really wanting to make a change to the millions of families like ours. So I decided to create it. It took about one conversation for my husband to say, I'm in, and here we are.
But it takes listeners like you to keep it alive.
So please, if you like this, write a review, take a screenshot, share it on your social media. Tell people, it means the world to us.
Remember to email us. We would love to hear from you.
And please share this with someone you love.
And be bold enough to share it with someone that you don't.